Episode 11, and it doesn't get much more exciting than this. Moving the goalposts. Not literally. I was sitting in an office a long time ago, and there was a senior woman officer talking about council practices, and there was a young woman who was a junior, and I don't think this young woman was particularly sophisticated. And the senior officer was talking about some type of educational policy, and she said, "Yes, I think they're moving the goalposts here." And someone else chimed in and said, "Yes, they are. That's what they do. They move the goalposts." And they meant, of course, that they had changed their policy to something that they hadn't originally set out or stated. But this young girl kept going, "Who's moving the goalposts? Who's moving the goalposts?" She actually thought of it in a literal sense, that someone was moving them around or digging them up and repositioning actual goalposts. I turned up in a very remote place to work, and it was my first night shift, and I had to do a long journey to this place, and there was pressure on me to get there because I was told I had to move to the location and I couldn't commute, but I wanted to commute. And I got a piece of bad luck on my first night shift, and that was as I was driving all the way to this location, I got within 2 miles and my car just suddenly stopped dead, and all the lights went out and it just went doop and stopped. And I was going about 60 miles per hour and it just suddenly went silent and just coasted down to a halt, and couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. Was it a fuse or whatever? And I called out the AA guy, and after a fair bit of diagnosis, he came to the conclusion that the timing belt had snapped, and that meant it twisted the 8 valves, and it requires a huge job to open up the engine and replace all those valves, particularly when I was going 60 miles per hour when it snapped. And that was really unfortunate. And so I had to do the night shift, which I started about 8 p.m. at night, and I was finishing at 8 p.m. the next morning. And I had a special number I was to phone to Nissan for emergencies. So I called up this number and it simply didn't answer. So after a few tries, it didn't answer, and I wanted to get home, but my car was bust. It was down the road somewhere. So I thought, I don't have any choice, I'll have to phone up the dealership. And I didn't know what the number was. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I phoned up Directory Inquiries. And I got a number for the dealership, and I called them out, and I got it sorted in that I was to get my car into them to get sorted as soon as possible, as being a timing belt breakage, and I was hoping to get this done under warranty. And there was a huge dispute with them, as you would always expect. They didn't grant this to me without quite a bit of a carry on. And that was another story in itself, but I put in my little continuity book at work that I had made a Directory Inquiries charge, a call, and it was 32 pence, and I recorded it as something which I had incurred. honestly, I declared it as a phone call, unofficial, and because my supervisor boss was a particularly mean-spirited person, he picked me up on this and said it wasn't 32 pence. It was actually, in fact, it was 53.238. So he gave me the figure to 3 decimal places and said that's the official figure for direct inquiries, and that's what you owe. And I said, well, it isn't really that, because I checked it by dialing 192 to British Telecom, and he said, well, I have contacted the Air Force and I've contacted the Ministry of Defence and a whole number, and they said that's what the rate is. I said, well, they don't actually charge the rate. This is charged by British Telecom, and if you want to check this out, then dial it just now and you'll find that the figure's right. Because therefore now he was in trouble, because he then had to save face, and it would also show how mean he was. So he pounced out of his seat and said, are you calling me a liar? I said, no, I'm just querying the figure. You corrected it, and I don't think that's right. It was a form of bullying. What he was doing is bullying me in a nasty sort of way. But he said, I'll teach you. And so I said, well, he then said to me, right, I am responsible for all the expenses here, and that's why I am right. And I said, and it is my duty. I said, well, I wasn't querying that. That was never under dispute. Whether you're responsible wasn't my query. The query was the figure. So we can work out what the figure is, 32 pence, just by checking. And you can do it right now. There's the phone. Why don't you check? And he said, well, I'll pay for it. And then he scored out my name, and he then paid the price, the charge. But what he was doing was moving the goalpost. When he was in a trap, essentially he was wrong. He decided it wasn't to do with the figure. It was to do with his responsibility to check all expenses. That's moving the goalpost into a different argument. And when he was challenged on that, I said, I'm not querying that or disputing it. Your responsibility, I'm talking about the figure. And therefore he was trapped. Therefore he decided grudgingly to pay for it, but that was rather than just saying, I got it wrong. And I was being a bit heavy-handed. But when you're working with a pedant, then you're always in trouble, because pedants, nasty ones, are always going to try and do this, pull these stunts on you.